The person stands in a staggered stance with the left foot posterior and slightly lateral to the right foot at the beginning of the movement, which describes the starting position for the center of gravity. The center of gravity is shifted towards the left lower extremity at the beginning of the motion, in a posterior lateral direction due to the emphasis of weight shifting through the left lower extremity. The center of gravity shifts in the anterior medial direction as the person moves through the motion. The location of the center of gravity is estimated to be more anterior and laterally, more over the right lower extremity at the end of the motion.
At the beginning of the movement, the base of support is wide, with the feet staggered and the left foot more posterior than the right, creating a stable foundation for the incoming rotation and forward flexion. At the beginning of the motion, the individual rocks back and shifts weight onto the heels of both feet. As the body moves through the throwing motion, the stance remains staggered, but the weight begins to shift from the heels, through the midfoot, and then to the toes. Briefly, in the middle of the motion, the heels come off the ground, reducing the posterior base of support. By the end of the motion, the base of support has stabilized, with more weight distributed through the front foot.
The hip strategy is the dominant balance strategy used by the performer. The hip, ankle, and suspensory strategies are all used throughout the motion as balance strategies. The hip strategy is utilized the most throughout the motion because the motion is high in amplitude and accommodates trunk rotation and shift in the center of gravity. At the beginning of the motion, the right hip displays extension while the left hip performs flexion. Towards the end of the motion, the right hip flexes while the left hip extends. The body uses the hips and pelvis to control balance as the torso and arm move through the casting motion. The ankle strategy at the beginning of the motion is displayed through plantar flexion of the right lower extremity with dorsiflexion of the left lower extremity, and at the end of the motion through dorsiflexion of the right lower extremity with concomitant plantar flexion of the left lower extremity. At the beginning of the motion, the left knee flexes slightly to bring the center of mass closer to the base of support. The right knee does the same action towards the end of the motion. The hip strategy is appropriate because it provides a stable foundation while allowing for significant upper body movement and rotation.
Stability versus mobility. During the cast, the lower body, including the hips, legs, and pelvis, provides stability. The staggered stance of the foot allows the lower body to remain grounded as the upper body moves dynamically for the casting motion. The stable base allows for coordinated trunk rotation and arm movement, particularly the dominant arm, to ensure the fishing line is cast with accuracy.
The hip, ankle, and knee balance strategies work together to integrate how much mobility is needed to perform the anticipated motion while making sure there's enough stability so the person doesn't tip over. These strategies work together to keep the center of gravity within the base of support so the person doesn't fall. At the beginning of the motion, eccentric muscle contraction is done through the left plantar flexors and quadriceps on the left lower extremity. During that same point in time, the plantar flexors and quadriceps on the right lower extremity are concentrically contracting. The trunk is extended and rotated ipsilaterally to the side that is holding the fishing pole. During this motion, the abdominal muscles are eccentrically contracting while the trunk extensors are concentrically contracting. The ipsilateral oblique muscles are concentrically contracting while the contralateral oblique muscles are eccentrically contracting.